Ready? Morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our TUD regular board meeting of Tuesday, March 24th, 2026. And if everyone would please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. So with that, would like to open the public forum. The board welcomes public attendance and comments on district matters. This section is reserved for items not on the agenda. Board may not discuss or take action on these items, but values and considers all input. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would wish to address the board? Okay, seeing none. Holly.
Consent calendar, item 1, minutes of the regular board meeting of March 10, 2026.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wish, the board wish to pull that for any changes, anything?
Minor correction, yes.
Go ahead.
So it was mentioned that I attended in the staff report or the director reports, there was mention of a federal advocacy committee, and then it was also mentioned about NSDA committee, and that those were 2 separate events. Just so the correction would be to delete the reference to NSDA for the first item, the agenda, for the staff report. Very minor, not a big deal, but I just thought I'd correct that. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Any comments from the public? If not, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes with the changes.
Second.
And do I have a second?
Yeah, I second that motion.
All right, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Holly, whenever you are ready.
Regular business, item number 2, consider easement encroachment issue at a property on Coffle Air.
Morning, everyone. I'm Antonio Ramirez from the engineering department. I provide customer service to the engineering department and the district. I often deal with new connections, new customers. I also deal with other kinds of topics. So this is one of my other kinds of topics. I don't have a lot of space here, but if I can get my item shared. Okay, so on July 29th, 2025, district staff received a call from a contractor who discovered a water line and its caution tape while excavating for a new garage at a property on Coffle Road. The caution tape is typically positioned about 2 feet above the pipeline. Field staff responded and discovered the contractor had not followed legal procedures, which include submitting a request for an underground service alert for property utility locating prior to digging. Field staff ordered the contractor to stop digging, to call in a USA and contact the district office regarding the project. The district has recently determined that the contractor never contacted a USA, nor was TUD contacted as was previously or as specifically requested. In this picture, you can see the The actual caution tape was broke by the excavation. This blue here is the blue caution tape is what we typically use. Down here, you will see this little white spot. This is where our field staff actually kind of poked around with a shovel and found the water main. So for a couple more swipes with the excavator, they would have hit it. This red line here is indicating the approximate location of where the water main is, just 6 inches below this red line. Fast forward to January 16th of 2026, the district received notice from the county. This is what I typically will get. This is sort of a cover for the building permit. The district received this notice from the county, and the documentation showed a proposed garage encroaching within the district's existing easement. Then on January 21st, a few days later, the engineering department, I received a call from the county regarding the same permit, asking whether the district objected to the easement encroachment. The district informed the county that easement encroachments are not acceptable and that we needed further time to investigate the matter. Again, this is the permit that I received. I should say, I don't know if the site plans, yeah, this is the site plan here. I'll try to, if I can zoom in on this or not. Doesn't look like I can. But the permit, typically when I get a permit, the structure hasn't been built yet. So when I received this, I informed field staff and said, hey, I got a project coming forward to me. They're requesting to build in an easement. So field staff went and looked at it and then told me that the structure was already built pretty much. We ended up meeting on site with the owners and determined that the garage and a 6-foot high retaining wall were approximately 4.5 feet. This part's a retaining wall. Further up the screen is where the actual garage is. This area is sort of like a carport, or maybe where you might store wood or something like that. But this retaining wall is about 6 feet tall. The garage and the retaining wall and the garage are approximately 4.5 feet away. This excludes the eave, which makes it even closer. So to try and replace this main, which is where the red line is, would be pretty difficult. When we were in the field, no decision was made at the meeting with the owners on how to proceed. After a discussion between district management and staff, it was decided that a cease and desist letter, which is also attached from the district's legal counsel, would be sent to the owners and be presented to, and then to present this item to the water committee for further discussion and to provide direction to staff. The cease and desist letter that was included, that was sent, included 2 options to remedy the situation. One was to relocate the garage away from the water main and outside the easement, or to relocate the water main a sufficient and safe distance away from the garage. So fast forward, this is the cease and desist order. I'm not going to go into too much detail. This is the recorded easement. This was recorded against the property. As we scroll forward here, these are bearings and distances and things, but it does show this is the easement, and that was recorded, and the infraction is right about in this area. Fast forward. So the cease and desist order had the 2 options, right? One, move the garage, whatever that entails. I'm showing you this here to talk about what it would entail to relocate the water main. So get rid of this here. The existing water main is this black line, and it makes this 45-degree angle and then kind of angles around as it follows around the curve in the road. The reason, and this is important, the reason that the water main takes this 45 here is because all of this up here is Caltrans right away. So the idea was probably at the time, they just were going to try to stay out of the Caltrans right away, not knowing what they typically don't like to see us in the right of way when it can be avoided. So that's why the water main is not in the road in this area and on private property. The easement I've shadowed here in blue. This is the existing easement. So again, the water main is in Koppel Road, jogs over into this private easement and continues on. To relocate the water main, and this is mostly to scale. I tried to do my best to make this look fairly close to scale. A realignment would look more like this. What we didn't want to do is, you know, redo this line to where, I don't know if I can, looks like I can't move this line. We didn't want to jog out here around the building and then come back in. It would just look pretty ridiculous and just not easy to track in the future. So relocation, according to operations staff, would look something along the lines of this. About 120 feet is my best guess. You know, a lot of details to work out in an actual, you know, plan. This is just conceptually what, you know, probably worst case scenario, what it would look like. And I thought that's important since that is one of the items that you're considering. As far as fiscal impact, it's unclear, you know, it's a water main break isn't imminent, but if it happens, it's most certainly, and it happens close to the garage, most certainly isn't going to be convenient for us to repair and could potentially cause damage to the garage and or whatever's contained in it. On the 26th of February, I took the same item to the committee. They unanimously supported bringing it to you for further discussion and direction. And again, I'm presenting this item just to bring it to all of your attention, but also to seek further direction, just to make sure we're going down the right path with this item. And with that, I'd be happy to take any comments.
Any board? Yes, please, go ahead.
So, Anthony, they built the garage even though they did not have the permit. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And they were aware because on the deed, it showed that this was an easement. Is that correct?
It was recorded against the property. What they saw and what they understood, I don't know. But it was recorded against the property. Would think that it would be on the title report.
So in essence, they did have some kind of knowledge of it, maybe whether they understood it or not.
Right.
And even when they were red tagged, they went ahead and built it?
They were not red tagged until the red tag is actually what brought this whole matter to our attention. So in last summer, our field staff came out there and said, stop digging, you know, give us a call so we can make sure that this goes down the right way. Then sometime probably around the first of the year, county inspector drives by, red tags it because they knew that it wasn't permitted. Then a drawing was put together and sent to me that shows the structure built in the easement and requesting that, you know, our opinion on whether or not we could accept it or not. So it was red tagged by the county. That created the permit that got sent to me.
So I'm just trying to make sure I understand everything. Excuse me. So they hit the blue tape. They notified
They called the office.
and somebody from staff went out and looked at it.
Yes.
So what was the time frame from that to where the county finally red tagged it?
I don't know the exact date of the red tag. I could just speculate. So I received the permit in early or mid-January, right? So they, I would say somewhere between July and December that it got red tagged.
Okay, and when was the staff initially notified? When they
In
went out?
July 25.
Okay, so that in July, and then we didn't get the notice until the following year in January, is that
Yes,
correct?
correct. So
Okay.
presumably it got red tagged. Then someone was hired to produce the site plan for the permit because someone did draw it up. And so that probably took a little bit of time. And so.
But they still built the retaining wall in the garage?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question, thank you.
Director Kearns, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, you. Okay, so I watched the water committee meeting on YouTube. And I also drove by here a couple different times, checked it out. I'm surprised to say the least. So getting back to these easements. On your blue line here, on your approximate location of the realignment of the water main, you show it going through Caltrans, is that correct?
Yes.
So have we contacted Caltrans? Do we have their approval to do that?
No, we would need their approval before we could do that.
Okay. What about Coffle Road? Can we go down Coffle Road
So in,
and stay out of Caltrans?
no, because Caltrans is all the way, this here. So
Oh, it goes
above
all
this
the way
red line.
across.
So this is all Caltrans right here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about the Alderman easement there? I see we're already across the Alderman, so I assume we can go ahead and cross again with the new
I
construction.
think you would need a bit of easement from, or you'd have to clarify what you have there as far as easement, but I think you're going to have to get a little bit of easement from Alderman as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Not a good situation, that's for sure. I could go on and on about this, but I'm not going to. That's all for now. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
I had a couple of questions similar to Director Reels. From the time the contractor hit the blue tape, the garage was not built at that time because they're just digging?
Right.
Okay. And then how much after that, how much time after that did they actually build the garage? Do you know?
The garage, so when we saw it, the garage was basically done on the outside except for the roof. So that is the state that the county red tagged it in as well.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think they red tagged it probably somewhere in December would be my guess.
Did the customer and the contractor have reason to believe that they had a go-ahead to build that
I don't
from the
know.
county?
I don't know how they would think that.
Yeah. But we did let them know at the time that they hit the blue tape that we had a pipe under there.
Yeah, we showed it to them. I mean, our field staff dug it up and said, this is the water main, call the office, call in the USA. And that did not happen.
So as I understand it, their choices are move the garage or go through considerable look at the easements and go that direction.
Right.
Seems fair. Thanks.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I'm surprised that nobody from the parties involved are here. Do we know why?
I don't know why. I'd be nervous, so
Okay.
that could be why.
And then have we established a time frame that we want this corrected?
Not as of yet.
So it's pretty obvious that they need to take action to correct the deficiency, and so maybe we just need to give them a deadline so they can have something to shoot for, and hopefully provide them with some budgetary figures from our standpoint if they choose to have us relocate the line. Those are my thoughts.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's along what Jeff was just mentioning. So what would be our procedure in realignment of this water main? Would we do this ourselves? Would we, our own crews do this? Would we sub this out?
We would sub it out to make it short.
Okay, so, and who would be in charge of taking care of this Caltrans easement and then getting hold of the aldermans? Would that be us, or would this be the subcontractor, or would this be the owner?
I would foresee that we would, our time would be covered, but they would have to provide an inspection and engineering deposit. But my guess is that would be us trying to get the encroachment permit for Caltrans.
Mhm.
It hasn't been, I'll be honest, it hasn't been discussed yet because we're waiting to hear from you, so.
Mhm.
It would probably be quicker if we worked with Caltrans versus somebody else. And final, it needs to be in the district's name. If somebody else does it, it may go in their name, even if they say we're doing this for TUD, but
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a mental picture of mechanically how this is all gonna work. This is not a good situation.
Director
Okay,
Rios.
that's enough for now.
So, what is the possibilities of us getting and the time frame of how long it would take for us to get that ability to dig that particular one on the Caltrans property?
I think you'd want to do some surveying on this one. That in this kind of little area, the maps are kind of unclear. So you have a surveying step, which could take, say, a month. As far as, I think that the challenge here is, when are we going to proceed with installing a water main, hiring a contractor, without receiving money from someone? And I don't think that we would. So I think the challenge would be, are these people able to, and when could they provide the funds in order to construct this water main?
That was my next question. Who was going to pay for it?
Yeah, that they would be paying for it.
And we have no idea of what that cost would be.
It could be that they would construct a water main similar to any other development project where there's like a developer agreement essentially, and they do hire a contractor. That's a route they could take. The easement encroachment is a whole nother issue, but we would probably have to assist with it, which is common.
Okay, anyone else?
Just some thoughts. I'm kind of brainstorming here. Obviously, they need to. They're on the hook to correct this. But is there a way, from an engineering standpoint, to either encapsulate, encase, put a sleeve around the pipe that's in the area of dispute, so that we protect ourselves from any, if something happened, failure of the pipe or something, that it would not create an issue, like, buried in concrete, put in a 12-inch sleeve around pipe, encase the pipe in a 12-inch sleeve or something. It might be ridiculous, but those are just some thoughts.
That's, if you don't mind, I'm going to interrupt here. That's exactly what we're trying to avoid. I think what we need to do is get back to the basics here. This was done without a permit,
Right.
period. It's not like no one knew that they shouldn't get a permit. There was a licensed contractor who was performing this work. It's part of your license, contractor's license, to know what the requirements are, and it states right in your licensing exam. There's questions about permits and what you're supposed to do and not do and everything else.
Yeah, they are.
This contractor
they're
was
clearly
also.
they're clearly in the wrong.
Okay, well, all I'm
disputing
trying
that.
to say is that we're not in a position right now to start mitigating this thing. That's not our job, is to mitigate what they created. Number two is to do what you're suggesting is doing exactly what during the water committee meeting that I brought up, that there's no way that we can do anything with that line, with that finished garage that close, without having liability on our part. So we're not sleeving it. We're not doing anything like that. It needs to be moved, period. That garage should have never been put within that easement.
Yeah, no doubt.
So let's just not even waste our time talking about doing mitigation things, because there's no way to mitigate it without taking on liability, and we don't need any more liability than we already have.
Yeah, I'm not saying we should do it. I'm just asking, is it a possibility?
So
Not an engineer, so I'm not going to answer that question. You might be able to answer it from an operational standpoint, but
to put a sleeve around, it's not really feasible. So you start digging pipe up and it's got good pressure there. It'll come apart. It'll jump out of the ground. And then the sleeve will not be whole. It'd have to be cut in half,
Right.
right? To keep water going all the time. You don't want to encase the pipe in concrete because then if there is a leak, then you're having to break the concrete out
Right.
to fix the leak, and who knows how far. If it's a full piece of pipe, it's not really feasible there.
That was a question.
Okay.
Plus, you're working within only a couple feet of a finished foundation and
Yeah,
2 feet away from a finished eave.
exactly.
And so somebody has a backhoe and they suddenly accidentally hit the eave or dig too deep, and suddenly now that we're responsible for a crack in the foundation.
Yep.
I mean, come on, let's not even go there. Yes.
So I agree with Director Ringen. It's their problem, not our problem. And so I'm just curious, looking ahead, as Director Jacobs has been, the garage there, is there any reason they can't move it 4 or 5 feet? They have room to do that? Tear it down and move it over?
I think it is where it is because that's where it can be.
Okay.
So the garage is real close to this sort of looped driveway. So they wanted to maintain and keep the loop driveway. And it does seem like it's appropriate for the location. But in order to fit a garage where you could park a truck into it, it's real close to the driveway. So I think it's where it is because they couldn't get a layout that otherwise.
Okay. Well, it's an unfortunate situation, but I agree with Director Ringen. It is the customer's unfortunate situation.
Okay, anyone else? Well, then I would like to ask, how much staff time, meaning money, do we have in this situation right now?
Oh, it's a tough question. Obviously, my time today, committee meeting, I would say I probably got 3 hours into it. Maybe
Oh,
4.
come on. From the beginning.
Well, I mean, I've only went out there once, so I haven't been out there a lot. So the initial call, I mean, I don't know what operations staff's time's been in it, but I don't think that combined, maybe they've got a couple hours, for the superintendent and the field person. So, it takes time, but I mean, I think what's more frustrating about something like this is the distraction for me from other things that I'd like to be doing.
A
Positive.
distraction for the entire staff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of people involved in this, and we've had to have a water committee meeting, and now it's taking up time at our board meeting. I don't want to see another minute spent on this because TUD did not have a thing to do with it. TUD, our employees have done exactly what they were supposed to do right from the very beginning, right when they went out and discovered where the line was because the tape had been hit. So I think what I want to ask is, Jesse, you're on board here. What's the best way to proceed on this so that TUD doesn't get hurt any further on this?
Well, enter into some sort of an agreement settlement with the existing owners, and that settlement agreement would have a requirement for the owners to either pay for the relocation of the line or that the owners will demolish the garage in its current location, constructed elsewhere, but clear out the easement. Clear out the easement. But I think the board should pick the solution here because, as has been pointed out numerous times, the landowner had numerous opportunities here to correct this problem before, to prevent the problem and to correct it once they discovered the problem. So it's two major fails there. So I think it would be best for the board to pick, and the Caltrans easement is a wild card there. President Ringen, I think that staff time, we could certainly do a settlement agreement and put the landowner, bind the landowner to pay the cost to investigate whether the Caltrans option is even viable. It depends on the people you get at Caltrans. Caltrans is very difficult to deal with, and I don't think I need to tell anybody in that room that or prove that to anybody in this room. Very difficult to deal with, time consuming and expensive. So, but if the landowner would like to pursue that option, that's fine. Or if they would like to at least investigate that option to see if it's even viable before demolition of the garage, then sure, we could do a settlement agreement and then ultimately identify a remedy later if that's what the board would like. We could require, a $10,000 deposit from the landowner for starters, and then move on from there. Thank
Okay,
you.
well, I appreciate your input on that. Is there any way to recoup what's been invested already in this mess, which we did not create?
Yes, I would include that. We would estimate current costs and recover those in the settlement agreement. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I guess then I'm going to bring it back to the board if there's any further discussion and how we want to, if we want to follow the suggestion of our legal person, or what's our pleasure here?
I would like the board to entertain a motion to direct the owner to demolish the garage. Demolish the garage.
Well, I don't hear a second, so it dies for the lack of a second.
Well, yeah, I'd agree with the idea here is to let them take their choices
Yeah,
as to how to do that. But we do have to put two numbers on it, I think. One, the number of how much it's going to cost for them to have a deposit to start with. And two, if this is not resolved, we have to tear that thing down. And there has to be a time frame on that too. Can't go on forever. So those two things should be in our proposal to them, how to resolve. And I'm not sure 10,000 is going to do it for a deposit. I think tearing down the garage, moving it's going to be $50,000 to $80,000. And I don't think that's nearly as much as what it's going to cost to pursue moving that pipe. So they got some money in front of them, but I just don't want it to go on too long. I think we should go along with the idea of giving them the choices. But let's put a number on the deposit.
did you read the agenda item? There was a cease and desist letter in there, and it was like an immediate. So they're already past due. So, and I don't think we should be putting any more time into putting together figures for them, ideas for them, or anything else. I think that's on their time and their dime. I think we should just allow this to go to our legal. That's why we use Jesse and let him, this is a mess and we don't want to get involved in it any further. And I think Jesse will have the keys to the lock to get us out of this. So does anyone have a motion? If not, I'm going to try and come up with one.
I'll come up with a motion. I would like to make the motion that we follow our legal consult's ideas with maybe a higher retainment for anything. But that's my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I have a
Sure.
question.
Okay,
I'm a little unclear on that, so help me out here. So we're gonna have Jesse take the reins on this. And Jesse, I guess you'll be in touch with the owner to figure out a solution. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, thank you, Director Ringen. If I may, what I'm currently thinking of is I could go, if the board wants to make such a motion, if we could include it in the existing motion, that I go back to the landowner and I tell the landowner, the board has voted and these are your two options. You demolish the garage in its location, get it outside of the easement, or if you wish, the board has allowed you to pursue the possibility of moving the water line across the road. Before we go, and then I tell them both of these alternatives will require compensation, a settlement agreement for between 10 and I guess $20,000. All right. If they want to pursue the Caltrans option, they're going to fund the cost, the investigative cost for that. And there will be no guarantee that that is going to be a viable option. So they may lose all of the time and money spent on pursuing the Caltrans option. If they prefer to just avoid that option and demolish the garage, that is their choice. Either way, if they refuse to do anything within a certain time period, let's give them 60 days. 60 days, I think, is fair. I will pursue an action in the Superior Court for ejectment from the easement, and we'll get the garage demolished that way.
Okay, yeah, that answers my question. Okay, I just wanted to be clear on just wanted to be clear what direction we were headed there. So thank you, Jesse. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
yes, go ahead.
And Jesse, I agree with all that. It sounds great. This thing's a mess, but that sounds like a great way to go after it.
So if Director Reel would like to amend her motion, it'd be tough for me to restate what I just did, but I think Melissa will capture the minutes, which is for me to go back to the landowner, propose, offer to them that the board is willing to pursue either option at their cost, and to inform me of their decision. And in the meantime, I will prepare a settlement agreement for prepayment of up to $20,000 if they want to pursue the Caltrans option. Otherwise, they will pay. We could still make them pay the $20,000 and refund the difference if they want to pursue the demolition. But that is kind of what I'm thinking. If I give them a call and they say we'll just demolish it because that's going to be less, then I don't think we're going to spend 20K. But so maybe I could mitigate that and drop that to half. But okay, I'm seeing some nods. If Melissa is so bold as to try to capture that motion in writing, we could try that.
Ellie's in here today.
Jesse, it's Hallie today.
Oh, it's Hallie. Okay, well, I'm sorry. Trial by fire, Hallie. Let's.
That's okay. What I have here in my notes, if a director want to make a motion to have TUD's legal team reach out to the homeowner to provide them two options, either demolish the garage or incur the cost to move the water main to Caltrans easement. That sum it up?
Yep, along with a prepayment for TUD costs. A 60-day deadline.
And
Thank you.
a time frame for either option would be,
60 days.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
60 days option.
the demolish option would be, 60 days. The Caltrans option is God only knows how long.
No, it is.
It wasn't for them to move the pipe, it was them to investigate whether they can.
No, it's one or the other.
Yeah.
One or the other. No investigation. That's up to
Okay.
them.
Okay,
It's one or the other.
And they're paying the costs.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, do you got my motion now? I've revised it.
Any further discussion?
I got one more question
Yes.
for Jesse. Jesse, assuming, for the sake of this question, that they take the demolishment of the garage option, I assume you would probably put in that agreement somehow. It doesn't need to be part of this motion, but that, that TUD would be, would have final say over what it looks like when it's all done? So that it's restored to proper grade and proper
Yeah.
coverage of the pipe and all that
Sure,
good stuff?
absolutely.
Yeah, okay. All right, good, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion or anything? Okay. Then thank you very much for your help and advice, Jesse, on this.
I know.
Very welcome.
Sorry, hang on. Eric has a question for you.
Yeah, please.
Sorry. Jesse, do we have any protection right now, being if we have a main line break right now from the construction that was done, are we protected in any way if it's broke in that easement and where they built?
Yes, if it's already broken, Eric, yes. They've impaired the easement. And we would, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as you point out, that line's under pressure. You can't just dig those things up and expect them to stay static. It doesn't work like that. So it wouldn't be beyond the pale or beyond belief that the pipeline has already been damaged. And if it is, then they would be liable for that cost. And the same is true if they demolish the garage and that line is damaged. They're on the hook for everything at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? I want to just say one thing here, and it goes without saying that this is what happens when people don't follow the rules. I mean, you get yourself in a bind that puts everybody in a bind. And thank you to our crew for handling things as well as they did. I think that the rules and regulations that have been put in place, I think staff should be commended that, you know, it works the way it should. And hopefully we won't have any more of these, but I'm sure they'll pop up from time to time. People always try to beat the system, but it doesn't pay. It makes a problem for everybody. All right, with that, is there any public input question?
President Reagan, we're still needing a second on the amended motion.
I thought we had one.
I'll second.
Okay, now we got one. All right, with that, finally, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone not saying? This passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. Okay, Ally.
Regular business item number 3, District 5-year financial forecast.
All right, that's me, and I apologize. It always takes me a minute to get the technology working. Okay, there we go. I think it's up on your screens. All right. Well, today I am presenting a 5-year financial forecast to you. And just a little background, when I first started, I was learning lots of things about TUD, lots of projects that were going on, lots of things, big things that are happening, and learning the ropes. And at some point in time, I came to Dawn and I said, you know, I'd really like for the board to be able to see everything put together in one package. And so that kind of started the vision that we had for this. And throughout, but I've been kind of working on it. I actually did one last year, but hadn't actually been presented to the board at that point. So this essentially is, I haven't said this in a while. I think every time I presented in my first year, I said, this is the first time I'm presenting this to you. Well, this is the first time I'm presenting a 5-year financial forecast to you. I hope it's not the last time. I actually want to kind of do this on a yearly basis if we can, to just kind of keep things updated and flowing, and so that you can continuously see the big picture. So that's essentially the goal of today. And so I'm just going to take you through some slides and take you through the process. But essentially today, what I'm going to go through, or I'm going to try to go through, is the why I want to do this and kind of have this process regularly. And then the how, so the how we came up with these numbers, the methodology used. And then, of course, the results of the forecast process. And so in your board packet, you just saw essentially the end results. You saw a bunch of numbers. And in the staff report, I summarized a little bit on essentially some of the why or the reasons to forecast. And so in that, what I described is that the districts, or what I envision for the district's 5-year financial forecast, is to serve as a strategic planning tool designed to inform decision-making and to support the annual budget process. So it is not a budget, but just a tool to kind of inform that process. It provides a forward-looking view of projected revenue streams, planned and potential commitments, inflationary impacts, and other financial factors that extend beyond a single year budget cycle. So usually what we see, or what you see at the board level, is 1 year at a time. I really kind of want you to see 5 years out. The ultimate purpose, though, is to present a high-level financial big picture based on the best information we have available in this current year. So with all of that said, this is intended to be a big picture. There's still lots of variables within it, if that makes sense. So it's definitely not a budget. Budget is, we've got to kind of hone down a little bit more. But this still hopefully provides you with a big picture, if that makes sense. So the other reason is, why am I doing this now? Well, I've kind of wanted to do this from the beginning, but now actually is a good point in time for several reasons. One is that we get our unfunded liability valuations, especially OPEB, once every 2 years. That just came in, that was presented last year, so it's a good time to have that incorporated into something like this. We have our Sierra Pines project coming up, so it's a good time to start incorporating those numbers in. We have labor negotiations coming up, so this helps you have that financial big picture when you're entering into labor negotiations. And then the last one is that we are nearing the conclusion of our scheduled rate increases. So those, we still have 2 more years of it, but that's going to be ending. So I think it's, instead of just waiting for you to see this right at the time that we're having to look at rates again, this can start to inform your mind before we're there. So that's essentially kind of the why now. And then starting to look at the how did we come up with these numbers? There's kind of 4 different thought processes that I had and that we had as we compiled this. First, and I'll go through these in a little bit more detail in a second, but just to introduce them to you, looking at the knowns, analyzing trends, looking at projects we've committed to, as well as projects that may be proposed. And then there's also a big element of assumptions that go into the process, as well as some things that we're excluding at this point in time. So looking first, as we're doing this project, looking at the knowns, what are some of the things that we know to be true right now and that are incorporated in this study? We know that rate increases are concluding in fiscal year 28. That's the last year that there is a scheduled rate increase. We do know our unfunded liability payments based on that last valuation. Now, what I'll say on that, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later on, but essentially we know 2 years of it. Beyond that is somewhat assumed. We know our current fiscal year budget, and that formed the basis of a lot of these numbers, was what's in our current fiscal year budget. We know our definite debt service payment as it relates to sewer. We're already paying that. We know what that is. We're not planning on increasing that for the future. So that's a known that's in here, doesn't change. The other thing we know is any covenants that we have associated with our debt payments. So those are things, and I'll explain those in a moment, but those are things that we know because we signed loan agreements saying that we would abide by certain things related to the loans. So those are the big knowns, and it was a good place to start on some of these things. What's also integrated into it is analyzing trends. So there are things that is kind of an analysis process where we're using past information to kind of make some, I would say, fairly educated assumptions about the future. For example, property tax growth looked at the past and how much it's grown for us or in the payments that we get, and incorporated that number in, assuming that it would be the same as what it's been in the past. Inflationary increases. So in those instances, in various categories, sometimes we can look at how much has it increased for us, or some categories that might be different than a typical inflationary increase. And so incorporating those historical values. Other things we're using, I'm using like outside studies that come up with an inflationary percentage. And then specifically in the area of fuel, because of some of the fuel issues that are going on right now, use an outside study that predicted how much they think fuel's going to go up by. So those are kind of analyzing some of those trends. And then, and with those inflationary increases, it really ranges from 31% to approximately 3%. 31% is only the fuel one. Most other ones range between 5 to 3. Another big one related to this is our health insurance costs. So analyze trends of the past to assume what health premium increases may be in the future. And over the last 5 years, our health insurance premiums have gone up about 12% each year. That's an average of those costs. So those are kind of the trends that have been incorporated into this. Then I started looking at projects out there that we've either already committed to or we've had ideas about and maybe proposed. And so those costs are included into this forecast. Sierra Pines project is included, so getting a better idea of what that's going to look like and debt service associated with it, those costs are included. Monthly billing, this is a project that's being proposed. It's not something that's been committed to yet, but the cost of changing our billing system from sending in bills out at once every 2 months to every month, there's costs associated with that project. That's been included in this forecast, but that's not necessarily a project that's been committed to. It's just a potential proposed one. And then of course, CIP. So we are committed to a CIP program. So of course, CIP is included, and the engineering staff and operations staff looked at that quite a bit over these next 5 years. Again, still just based off of what we know right now, and that's still subject to change, but it's still, of course, the CIP program is included. And then going further down the line, I would say there's still some definite assumptions. For example, investment income, this is an assumption that what I've put in there is actually a really conservative assumption. Analyzing the trend of the last 2 years would actually be higher than what I've put into this. But because I really only have 2 years of positive data, I was a little bit shy about assuming that would be the same. And so in that one, it's purely an assumption. If I can't say it any other way, it's not really based on a trend. And then there are, even within all of the other methodologies, there's still some level of assuming in all of them. So for example, our unfunded liability payments, we know the next 2 years, but the 3 years beyond that is based off of their valuations, of which we'll get new ones in 2 years. So there's still some assumptions in those later years. Sierra Pines, still unclear on the total cost. In this, we're assuming total funding package, and the current estimate, if we need funding beyond what's already been promised to us, I'm assuming that it would be in the form of a loan at the same interest rate of the loan that they're already giving us. So there's an assumption in that. We're assuming that the project cost will be around $60 million. That's still subject to change, but those are the assumptions related to that project included in this financial forecast. And CIP is really our best educated guess at this point at our current priorities, as well as the costs associated with those priorities. So all of that to say, that's why this is not a budget. It's just a forecast to basically come up with a financial big picture. There is still a lot of leeway that could happen between here and fiscal year 31, but at where we're sitting right now, this is our best estimate, if you will, and I think it still does inform the big picture because things could change, but whether things change drastically remains, probably wouldn't happen if that makes sense. So this gives you a hopefully at least a big picture where things could be, if that makes sense. So then looking at the actual numbers, this is what you saw in your packet. This particular slide, and sorry, this is where it gets really numbery, and later it'll get more graphy, but I'm starting with the numbers. But this first column right here is our current year's budget. And then each column after that is each following fiscal year. So the forecast or the projection is years 2027 through 2031. This first section here is revenue. Second section down here is expenses. Can you see my cursor? You can't, sorry. And then the last line that says surplus or deficit is basically the bottom line. That's revenue minus your expenses. So looking first at revenue, the one thing that I want to point out is that I spoke about one of the things we know is that rate increases are scheduled to end according to the current rate schedule in fiscal year 2028. So 2028 through 2031, you see on the revenue line that it's flat. The forecast is showing it the same. So we're not forecasting an additional rate increase for this purpose. And so this forecast basically shows you what it would look like if we didn't have a rate increase. The second thing to point out, and so essentially because that's the majority of our revenue, truly our total revenue line is fairly flat as well. It really doesn't go up by very much. It's about 544,000 between 2026 and 2031. Yes, Director Ian.
So this is what was concerning me is when I looked at this. But what you're, okay, so we have no increase. So that's why we're having the deficits at the bottom. But this is assuming the current rate of increase of our inflation and so on. What is it right now? 2.6 or 3% or
As
something?
expenses?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll get into that a little bit later on.
But I mean, that's what's baked into these figures.
Yeah, there are inflationary increases baked into the expenses,
And it's
correct?
based on what we're doing today, not because we don't know what it could be. It could be less or it could be way more down the
Yes,
road.
yes. So yes and no to that, I would say. So yes, in the sense that our expenses, the basis point I used was this year's budget, and then assume inflationary increases on that each year. Inflation, as I said, it could change, right?
Right.
But there will always be some level of inflation. And in that, I've tried to use outside studies for some of those areas, also looked at what have been some of our historical increases in some cost categories and things like that. So yes, 100% there's assumptions made as far as inflation.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And then the next item, so essentially revenue is really fairly, for this forecast purpose, is relatively flat. Then looking at expenses, the first line that you see on there is O&M, operations and maintenance, labor costs. So one thing that I want to mention, which I mentioned before, but I want to say it again, is that this excludes any future changes resulting from labor negotiations, because at this point that's unknown. But what it does, and I'm going to go into more detail on what is included in here, but basically just as knowledge for water, even though it doesn't include labor negotiation changes, there's still projected cost increases of about 2.1 million from year 2026 to 2031. And so I'm going to go into more detail on that, where I'll talk about water and sewer together because it really affects both of them. But just as an FYI, right now, there are still increases associated with labor, even outside of labor negotiations. O&M services and supplies, so this is operation and maintenance costs other than labor, essentially. This incorporates inflationary increases that we're assuming. And one thing that I wanted to point out here as well is that between 27 and 28, it includes an increase associated with if we went to monthly billing. So that's where that cost starts in year 2028. So just so you know that that's in there. Debt service, so for water, this line assumes that we would start repaying in full, both principal and interest on the Sierra Pines project in 2030. That's an assumption. We don't know for sure that it would be 2030. That's an assumption for this forecast. And that's about 1.38 million. So that's why you see this big jump between year 29 and 2030. And then CIP, one of a major assumption or like a real big difference that you see here that you wouldn't normally see in one of our regular CIP forecasts or plans is that you can see in 2026, we have about 5.8 million budgeted for CIP. You can see that goes down drastically in 2027, down to about 2.7 or 2.8 million. And the reason for that is because in going through this process and just the Sierra Pines process in general, the idea is being tossed around that we start doing a lot of it internally ourselves. And so that includes engineering time, construction and maintenance time, which means we'd probably have less available to do other CIP projects. So that's why you see that drop there in 2027. It does start to go back up in future years, but there's a pretty significant drop in that year. So that essentially brings us to the bottom line where you can see this year we were projecting, or we budgeted for a surplus of 500,000 to put into reserves. In 2027, we're actually showing a surplus of about 2.7 million. But that reason for that is because we've dropped that CIP expense by a lot. So each year thereafter, you start to see that there's deficits. Fairly minimal in 28 and 29. 2030, you see a big jump, and that's essentially because of the debt service related to Sierra Pines. Then the last thing that I look at, and I think I mentioned this, is we have a situation where we have loans out there, like we will have this loan for Sierra Pines. And when we sign those agreements, we have what are called debt service covenants. And one of those is that our operating costs, when we sign those agreements, we're agreeing with those lenders essentially that we will make sure that our operating costs, which is these top ones that I just put a bracket around, the sum of those operating revenue, I think I said costs, operating revenue less our operating costs have to be at least 1.2 times the amount of our annual debt service payment. So we're showing in year 2031 that we are going to have debt service payments of about 1.6 million. It means by those years, we have to make sure that our operating revenue exceeds our operating costs by $1.9 million. So I put this line down there at the bottom to show you whether or not in each of those years would we be meeting that requirement. And so in all of those years, we would, even though we are forecasted to operate at a deficit, we would still be meeting our debt service requirements. So that's part of the good news in this financial forecast. So in a more graph-oriented slide, this slide right here, the blue line shows you our revenue, and you can see that it looks really flat over all those 5 years. And then the orange line is our forecasted expenses. You can see in 2027 that our expenses are forecasted to be lower than, but then you see it go up fairly flat, 28 and 29, but then you see that increase in 2030 and 31, essentially because of Sierra Pines debt service. So then we move on to sewer, and most of the things in sewer are basically the same as water as far as the reasons behind things. For example, look at revenue. Oops, excuse me, a minute, if I get my slide to work. Flat revenue, just like water, yes.
Excuse me, Carol. Could you go back to the previous slide?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Could you show us or tell us what the minimum requirement debt service is on as a, compared to the,
This one here.
yeah. So how does our minimum requirement met compared to what we're actually doing?
Not sure. I
In other words,
understand.
how much in excess of the minimum requirement?
You know, I don't have those numbers
Just a
right.
rough idea.
Yeah, I've got them somewhere. I'll find them before the end of the,
Yeah. But it's,
yeah,
but percentage wise, is it
yeah.
A-
I have it in a different one.
a
I
big-
apologize.
a big difference or a little difference?
Right now,
oh, sorry.
we're a big difference.
Big difference. Okay.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's my main-
More than meet it, which
Okay.
is why essentially we still meet it in 2031, even with a much larger debt service. Does that help answer the question? Yeah. Okay, so moving on to sewer, really the same types of patterns between sewer and water with a few exceptions. Flat revenue. O&M doesn't include labor negotiations, but there are still some cost increases that I'll explain after this. O&M, monthly billing is also included in sewer because both water and sewer take a portion of that project. And so it's in year 2028. One major difference is that sewer debt service line is the same throughout all of it because we're not planning on taking out anymore. There's no new debt in sewer forecasted at this point. CIP, it looks a little different than water in that essentially the CIP just really fluctuates a lot between the years in sewer. And then lastly, the bottom line in sewer, we're actually projecting a deficit each year, and it really fluctuates from year to year based on CIP. But debt service requirement, again, we also have to meet our debt service covenants on that as well for that $789,000 loan. And thankfully, the operating revenue less the operating expenses for all of those years does meet that requirement because it has to be around the $900,000 range. And this is what sewer looks like in graphic form. So again, the blue line being revenue looks very flat. The orange line is the expenses. That jumps around quite a bit, but that's because of CIP plans at this point in time. And so that's kind of what sewer looks like from the big picture point. Now, what I wanted to go into a little bit more, just to give you some more background information on some of those operations and maintenance increases between the years. And so this graph represents our operations and maintenance labor increases comparing fiscal year 26 versus fiscal year 31. So at the end of the 5 years, where those increases are. So even outside of labor negotiations, we're still projected to have increases that we would have even if just outside of labor negotiations. And so one of the biggest ones is insurance. So the assumption that I made there, based on historical trends and how insurance costs have gone up for us the last 5 years, that I mentioned that average of about 12% a year. I assumed that they would go up 12% a year the next 5 years. And if that happens, we'll be paying about 1.7 million more in year 31 than we did in year 26. Retiree health, which actually also has to do with the cost of labor of insurance, but that's based on our OPEB valuation, is projected to be 719,000 higher than 2026. PERS, which has to do with the unfunded liability payment, is projected to be 537,000 higher year 2026. Wages are still projected to go up even though we don't have labor negotiations in here yet, just because of our normal step increases that we give. So that's about 217,000. Then taxes associated with that is about 17,000. So that's that total of about 3.2 million. This is water and sewer combined. So the pie chart shows you very interestingly that the majority of it is insurance costs. That's 53% of it. So those numbers are what's included in those projected increases.
Oh.
Then looking at,
Question.
yeah.
You mentioned the increases for insurance were 12%.
Mhm.
Would you mind telling us what the projected increases were for the other line items?
Well, so retiree health is based on our valuation, if you will. So that's not necessarily a projected increase.
Okay.
That is what the valuations state that our unfunded liability payment needs to be.
Okay.
So we went through that valuation last board meeting, and so that's the projected payments. That's our actuarially determined contribution amount.
As far as a percentage estimate, For the-
Between what
for-
it is now and what it is that, I don't have it, I'm sorry.
the health insurance is 12%, retiree health, we don't know.
That it goes up per year. Yeah, I didn't do that
Okay, that's fine.
necessarily because I had an actual dollar amount.
Sure.
So it wasn't an assumed percentage, if that makes sense.
And then the other items,
Same with PERS because that's an actual dollar amount as well.
Okay.
And wages, kind of the same idea. Wages, we assume that for step increases, it really affects the full wage amount by about 1%. So that's almost like a 1% increase.
Okay.
Because not everybody's eligible for step increases. They've already gotten all of their step increases.
great, thank you.
And then taxes are a direct result of wages, direct calculation off of that. So really the only assumed percentage is insurance. Then looking at non-labor operations and maintenance costs. I've just kind of summarized some of the items that are projected to be over $100,000 between fiscal year 31 and fiscal year 26. And so the top one on there is billing costs. So that's because it incorporates going to monthly billing. So that's about $667,000. That cost is not just the cost of going to monthly billing because our credit card fees go up every year anyways. So it's encapsulating both of those things, both the project as well as just normal inflationary increases that happen with credit card charges, postage, all of that associated with billing. Our general insurance costs we're projecting to be about $382,000 higher. Chemicals, $292,000. Electricity, $218,000. Fuel, $155,000. Supplies, $138,000. And repairs, $138,000. For a total of about close to $2 million. And this is both water and sewer together. So that's just kind of the idea of what's included in some of those cost increases in the non-labor portion of operations and maintenance. Then this slide represents really debt service. The blue column shows you the water debt service each year. And so as you can see, water gradually goes up until fiscal year 30, where you see that big jump. That's where we assume that we're going to start paying the Sierra Pines debt payment in full. Sewer, you can see, is exactly the same all the way across. We're not projecting any increases on that. This, the brown line is them together. And so you can see as far as a line that pretty steady, big jump, and then flat. And then looking at the CIP program, same type of idea as the last slide. The blue is our water CIP projects. The green is the sewer CIP projects. The line is them together. And so you can see that in water, you see that big drop off between fiscal year 26 and 27. And then you see that it's just slightly wavy after that. You can see that sewer is kind of, it's a little bit more fluctuates between every year.
I got a question on
Yeah.
CIP. So the amounts that you have plugged in there, do they include the all the amounts of CIP, even the ones that are grant funded that we haven't got grants for yet?
All of this is grant funded
Okay.
CIP work.
Okay,
also
so these are
doesn't-
actual viable CIP projects that we will actually be doing in the coming years.
The hope, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And so with water and sewer together, it's about $27.7 million in CIP outside of Sierra Pines. And that's an average about $5.5 million a year. Now, just to let you know that in our previous rate study, the average that was being planned on was about 6.7 million per year. So this has dropped a little bit from that. Part of that is because of Sierra Pines, is we're going to be focusing some of our internal staff time and forces on that project. So really, there's much more that's going to happen in CIP, but it is Sierra Pines. That makes sense. Yeah.
I don't want to get us off topic here, but I think that this is sort of important to ask right here. Eric, where is this, I can already see we're headed towards, some sort of rate increase, but, without saying swearing here in public, what, is that sustainable, as far as, what we have, as far as work that needs to be done? I mean, we're coming down off well, if we complete Sierra Pines, that's gonna help immensely because we're gonna be getting rid of about 4 or 5 or more old plants, and there's gonna be a lot of savings there. But what about all the rest of the infrastructure? Is this, discounting a rate increase? Are we getting ourselves into a problem here?
I don't want to say we're getting ourselves into a problem. I'm going to steal Dawn's line. We were talking about this yesterday. We feel like we're getting close to the peak of, as far as what we needed to get. Everything needs to be fixed, but we're getting to the peak of what really needed to be fixed with tanks, some critical infrastructure. So going forward, a lot of things we feel like we're going to be doing is mainline replacement, service line replacement. So I feel like it's sustainable.
Okay, I just, I look at this from where we've been, so to speak, and we've made tremendous progress, and Sierra Pines is a big key to this. That's like a foregone conclusion. It's got to be, but we still have some things that are in major pain for a long time, and we're not there.
Right.
Like all of downtown Sonora. And how do we, the amount of money it's going to take to do some of this stuff, I don't see in that almost flat brown line there.
So when we're going to get into the pipeline projects, they're going to span out longer times, so we're not going to be able to spend as much money. Because it's especially like in downtown where you're probably not going to be getting the footage that we normally get in the ground. So I don't want to put myself in a bind, but in my opinion, we're not going to spend as much money going forward because our crews are going to be so tied up in these.
Yeah, but we got a Dodge infrastructure that's already there that's not ours. We've got paving. We've got, it just goes on and on.
Yeah.
I look at that flat brown line and I say, I'm not thinking so. Be interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Then-
He's got a question.
oh, sure.
Yeah, so along the lines of Sierra Pines and the overall CIP project, I know, we know that they're going to be operational cost savings once the Sierra Pines project is up and running. It's going to take some time, but it's not going to be immediate. It's going to be somewhat gradual, but do we have is it a breadbasket or a boxcar savings, operational savings that we can glean from the Sierra Pines completed project that could be moved to do other things that are critical?
I like your analogy. A large breadbasket.
A large bread. I realize there's lots of places for the money to go. Absolutely.
In the eye of the beholder. I agree with Eric. Just think what we've done in the last 5 years. Number of tanks are taken care of, number of treatment plants already taken care of, and a few more to be taken care of. We have Mount Provo done, we have, Mount Elizabeth done, we have Kaler done. We've done a lot. We have some more tanks, but not the amount that we used to have. So we just sort of feel like we're cresting the hill. And we might be able to maintain, right? We might be able to maintain. And like Carolyn said at the very beginning, this is just a point in time today, right? As we know life today, this is what we feel and think.
It's gonna be hard to say on if, we know there's gonna be a cost savings with Sierra Pines, but so there's treatment plants they're not gonna have to drive to, right? They're gonna go to one spot or be there.
Right.
Chemical cost, I could see instead of spending it here, you're gonna spend it here because you're making that much more water. Power costs, we're gonna have to wait and see. Overall, there should be a savings. I think it's gonna take some time to see it.
Sure.
You know, O&M budgets could drop a little bit because we're not doing these little, we're not roofing them things now, other
Right.
buildings. We're not painting the buildings. We're not having to rake pine needles, you know, so little things like that, I think we'll be able to see which money can get moved around, but it's,
I think there's gonna be a fair amount of labor savings also. That's gonna be a biggie, I think.
less driving, less tires, less brakes, less fuel, right?
Even people
I still see the people shifting,
shifting, yeah.
right? They may not be in water treatment, then they move to distribution. Cause we're slowly trying to become a true distribution department. You know,
Right.
I don't want to say we're halfway there, but there's some things, but I mean, it's like when we get into mainlining, we're gonna need more people there unless we sub out flagging. It's depends on how much we want to do and how fast we want to do it.
Right.
Like I'd be happy to be done tomorrow, but it doesn't work that way, so.
And I think too, that this is where if we get creative and observant, that we'll be able to find grant monies and I mean, I know that there's a lot of that sort of stuff drying up, but there's really a lot out there if we really look for it. And so it's just gonna be how creative we be.
Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no problem. It was a good discussion. And to that point, it actually brings up, I had thought about operational savings from Sierra Pines. And just so you know, those aren't incorporated in
Okay.
here yet.
Nope.
Part of that is because I think it will take us several years to figure out what those operational savings are actually going to look like.
And that's the reason why I raised the issue that we know there will be some operational savings, but, and we don't want to, you know, we want to be realistic. But it'd be good if we could maybe spend some time analyzing, or trying to quantify what the savings would be, and then, you know, try to track that. Because the big selling point of Sierra Pines was the savings in operational. Just like one of the big selling points in the remote read meters was you know, O&M savings. So
Well, and I would say with Sierra Pines too, maybe even more than O&M.
absolutely,
Is CIP savings.
yes,
Future CIP savings.
absolutely. Anyway, just to, not to belabor the point, but just
Yeah.
trying to at least, it's kind of fuzzy, and it'd be nice to quantify it so we can kind of track it throughout the year.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of it, especially with operations and maintenance, I think that much of it was CIP is where we would see the bigger savings.
Right.
Operations and maintenance, and I think that we saw this with the regional a little bit. It kind of remains a bit fuzzy until there's a few years out, because when something starts up, oftentimes you don't see operational savings because you're still getting things started up. You're still getting the systems going. So that's, I apologize, but could remain fuzzy for a while.
And another thing, another reason for quantifying is that we can use that to justify doing future CIP projects that will we could leverage to reduce operating costs or CIP costs, future CIP costs. Anyway, just working smarter.
Sure. And then that brings me to my last slide, and this is just to sum it all up, the forecasted bottom line for, and again, keyword here is forecast, if we really think about the definition of that. Forecasted bottom line for fiscal year 31, water would be at about a $2.7 million deficit and sewer at about 1.5. So that's kind of, there's different ones each year, but the last year, that's what it's looking like with all these assumptions and knowledge base that we have right now. So that is the end of my presentation, unless anybody has any questions.
Anyone with any questions, whatever? Okay, well, I'd like to know from our GM how this is going to fit into, well, let me put it another way. Are we going to go after a new CIP, another 5-year CIP?
A 218 process.
Well, I know we're going to go into we have to go into a 218 process, but I think we're going to have to look at a new 5-year CIP to fit in with what she's just put together more or less and figure out what, you know, where we're going project wise and so
Right.
on.
The short answer is you are right. We do need to continue to do our rolling 5-year capital improvement plans. I think we've had a continuous 5-year rolling capital improvement program that changes every year for 5 years now, maybe a little bit more than 5 years. This year, because of CR Pines, we really had to focus on the next year, 27, and left the remaining years normal or flat or about the same until we can get past the CR Pines design part. And then say this time next year, January, so we'll be back to our full-fledged capital improvement planning process, which will inform us. Yeah.
Which is about the right timing as far as the 218.
Absolutely.
With our going to monthly billing, whole bunch of labor, the MOU,
All kinds of things.
everything's going to come together this coming year.
And then to add on what Don, so we just kind of did go over the CIP for the 5-year. And some of it had already incorporated 2 different main lines that we need to replace. One going down towards Crystal Falls, one going up to Zone 2 that we'd already planned on paying for in-house that goes along with Sierra Pines. So that's in there and has quite a bit of that cost because they're both long.
Great. Great. Okay, guess I'll bring it out to the public. Anybody want to address the board? Have any questions? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for I guess we want to accept and file.
I'll make that motion to accept and file a report.
I'll second that.
Right, there's no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Holly. You're up.
Regular business, item number 4, update on district operations, February 2026.
Hard to believe it's still good morning, but good morning. Don Perkins, your general manager. I'm here on behalf of Eric Hall to provide you the operations report for February of 2026. Keeping in mind that it's late March already, so looking at page 2, the raw water division, I point out the second bullet point that the crews were out roughly cutting 300 trees from the entire ditch system during or as a result of the big storm we had. A little bit later down, let's see what.
Who gets all the firewood?
It's a trip to go get that.
You all.
Never mind. I'm really pleased to see this one on here. This fifth or sixth bullet point, they started the monument for the interpretive sign on the Upper Columbia Ditch. I'm really pleased to see that on there. A little later, the crews floated snow multiple times during the storms. That's about it on that page. The next page, you can see, you know, few pictures that kind of show you what the working conditions were during February, which was quite diverse. Lots of snow and lots of hot sunshine. Interesting month we had. Water supply, it's quite obvious, you know, thus far, we don't have quite the average amount of snow or rain accumulated. However, there was a fair amount of snow water equivalent up in the high country or the frozen reservoir. But with all the heat, it's pulling that, it's draining that and melting that a lot faster than we'd like. So it's really dependent on Mother Nature whether or not she's going to relent with this heat and let us retain that, or if it's going to melt off faster. But today we're predicting an early May spill, end of spill, which is pretty early. Not the earliest maybe, but pretty early. Could be. Somebody write that down. Could be. So anyway, we'll just leave it right there. Turning to the water operations page, not a lot here to note, except down there towards the bottom of the total million gallons produced on the upper portion right there, you'll see a bit of a reduction between last year and this year. 80.8 million gallons versus 77.4 million gallons. Not sure what to attribute that to, other than well, there's a little more to this, but you know, we did ask for some conservation during the main canal outage. I don't think that's all there, but I think there has something to do with it. But what is down at the bottom part on the groundwater wells, you'll notice, or at least I've noticed, that there's 4 wells that aren't typically on that we had to turn on to make do, and that's the Cedar Ridge Springs well, the Comstock well, the Crystal Falls well, and the Oak Ridge well. Together, they produce 1.6 million gallons for the month. Probably most of that during that outage.
I got a question.
Yeah.
You just mentioned that we leaned on those wells a little more than we're used to. And I assume we leaned on the Maloney's pumps as well too, right? So how did all that perform? Everything ran good, or did we have any surprises? Anything break down?
Nope.
How'd it go?
Everything went very well.
Good.
Yes. But Maloney's, we test once a year at least, spin the pumps.
Mm-hmm.
There we used, and the wells get used during our normal ditch outage too.
Mm-hmm.
But
Good.
I want to add to that, we're down to 1 pump. The other pump is out.
At Maloney's?
Yeah.
So
And that's something we need to look into.
yeah, there's 2 pumps in the lake
Mm-hmm.
that pump up to the day tank, and then there's 3 pumps in the building that pump up ditch.
So where's the pump down? At the lake?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's underwater.
1,057 feet below the surface of the water today.
Yeah, that's some head.
I do have a lead on an outfit from, I'm trying to get a hold of. I'll be working on that too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, you prodded me. Let's keep it real.
Go ahead.
So as far as Maloney's, is that reflected anywhere on the report? The water from Maloney's, is that reflected anywhere in the report?
It is not, unless it's in this.
Yeah,
So you're the Columbia demand,
Columbia, okay.
but it's not going to say water from Maloney's, right?
Right, okay.
But that's where
But that's where it's
goes.
included.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then as we were talking about wells, in a worst case scenario, if we have a ditch outage like we did, what was the duration? Was it 3 weeks?
17 days.
17 days, okay. In the event we had a longer outage, can we lean, are there other resources, groundwater resources we could lean on in a crisis?
Yes,
Okay,
but they're down the hill further. We need more groundwater or Cedar Pines Reservoir up higher.
okay. All right.
So, I don't know off the top of your head if you know about how much we pumped out of Maloney's. Probably a couple of million gallons, right? Probably a couple of million gallons, it's typical. Just have to. We also trucked water from the lower area elevation up to the upper elevation. That helped us get by. But by and large, what saved our bacon was the snow melt.
Wow.
And yes, we did learn something about these groundwater wells, and we're going to now modify the Sierra Pines treatment plant to have some strategic wells around that reservoir.
Great.
That'll just help. Our groundwater doesn't give up a lot of water.
Right.
We're not in the basin where they can get
Right.
hundreds of gallons a minute. If we get 100-gallon minute well, we've really done something great. Most of
Right.
these are 20, 30-gallon minute wells,
Right.
if that.
So in terms of our emergency planning, is groundwater resource a significant line item in that?
We'll take some more evaluation, but
Uh-huh.
like I just said, we need what we were shy, 600 gallons a minute, something like that. When we were budgeting during a crisis, Eric did a fantastic job during the emergency management. But we, from what we had in tanks and storage, what standby sources of water we had a deficit, right? And that was around 670 gallons a minute, I think, at the peak, something like that. So, yeah, so that's quite a bit of water.
Sure.
And so groundwater, a well here and there isn't really going to solve it. It'll
Right.
help, but
Mhm.
it won't solve it.
But like, for example, if again, getting a little up, I don't want to belabor the point, but
Melissa's.
again, if we're in a super critical situation where a homeowner has a well on their property, is there any mechanism for encouraging them to utilize that to reduce, provide conservation for the rest of the district? I'm just,
That's a lot of
I'm just
speculation.
brainstorming here. I'm not-
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do that offline.
Okay, great.
Water supply is important. It's important to the state too, where this water is coming from for public consumption.
Yeah, go ahead.
General Manager Perkins, I was not familiar with what's going on with Maloney's. When we got the $2 million, or 2 million gallons worth, do we pay that water back or do we buy it from them? What do we do?
Oh,
The state's well aware that we spin our pumps and time to time in emergency cases need to use that water. Oh, okay, so distribution. Make the distribution, next page. As per usual, we're continuing to do our annual hydrant flushing. And I think one of those bullet points down there in the middle, the hydrant repairs, is that due to when we flush these hydrants, we also inspect when we flush the water mains and clean water mains, we use the hydrants. And I think as a result of that, we need to make some repairs. Yep, that's why that's there. And then just another note that the distribution team played a vital part in the main canal outage. Turn the page. Next page, a few pictures of they were doing. Oh, and let's see, where am I? I'm on the my construction maintenance page. Here you go. So interesting to note, as different than previous months, we had 10 water leaks to tend to versus, last summer, there were times we were dealing with 30 plus in a month. So down a little bit, but with the weather going like it is, it'll probably increase as well. They're currently, among other things, construction maintenance, they're working on the Peaceful Pines tank replacement. They did a lot of work during the main canal outage. I turned the page. I'd be sorry. Yeah, did a lot of work during the main canal outage. And then Hayden Jacobson passed his Distribution 1 certification test. So that's kind of cool. Turn the page.
So, excuse me, before we leave that, go back to that page. So overtime hours, almost 570 hours with 15 employees. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we commended everybody for their hard work, but that just, that just speaks volumes right there. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you for noticing. And again, some interesting pictures of crews out there doing their thing in different weather conditions. You can see an example on this next page of some truck hauling water from one location, Ewan Mill, all the way up to Crystal Falls. Is that where that was going?
Crystal Falls and Big Hill.
Yeah.
Question, what is ponytail? Is that a term of construction term, or is that
That's a street.
a street
Cedar
term?
Ridge,
Street in Cedar Ridge, okay. Ponytail, interesting.
right next to Pack Trail and
Estrelita and Hitching Post.
Hitching Post. There's all kinds of horse roads up there. All right, turning the page. Amidst all that, staff had plenty of time to do some confined space training and respiratory training.
I had a question on this page and I'm trying to find it. Had to do with contractor. I'll be darned if I can find it now. I know it's on page 16. I thought it was. Oh, well, sorry for that. Should have taken better
Well,
notes.
it's number 6 on the bottom.
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you. So what was the situation there? I mean,
So, gosh, I don't remember when PG&E was setting a new pole and they drilled through the sewer line. So we had to kind of come to a reroute some plumbing, and we still need to go back and do some more work to it there because we couldn't get equipment to it because it was too wet and too messy. So it filled up with some dirt and gravel. The manhole did.
and they're gonna get billed for it?
It's, yeah, no. The work that yeah, I think the work possibly, but I don't, not the overflow. Like this was 6-8 months ago.
Okay, just wondering, I mean, once again, it's that USA stuff. That must have been in an old area that, you know, there's not accurate records or
All right.
whatever.
So this current page that we're on, I blew right over. This is the wastewater collections department. I'm not positive, Eric, but I don't remember, but did they actually, I know they offered to lend some resources and help. Did they end up doing that?
Yes, they did. Two of them went and hung ditch outed signs. And then I do believe some other staff to help in different places of distribution and on the ditch.
A fair amount of sharing personnel to get through this disaster. Always amazes me that they can do those things and still accomplish their mission. So I'm turning the page to the next page, just some pictures there from the work the collection department is doing and wastewater treatment. Nothing out of the ordinary report here.
That Willow Springs looks, back, if you back up a page, that's, looks like it's finally, what, operational? Pretty sharp. I mean, from what was up there before,
Huh.
that's like night and day.
We plan to have hopefully to have a ribbon cutting ceremony there.
Good.
Soon, yeah, when it's more time.
Good.
Back to the wastewater treatment, fairly blasé month. But what I find interesting is these rainfall totals. You see that for 2026, we had like nearly 6 inches of rain, which is a little above the norm. The normal average for the last 5 years is 4.9. So did have a fair amount. So you turn the page, a couple of pages, just to make note for you who, next page, Abby, 21. I see at the top there, Eric opened up the emergency response center, was activated. And it stayed open, meaning we have regular meetings in the emergency command center room. All the important people get there and talk about what their challenges are, what their needs are, and what resources Eric and others can get for them. So, and we had time for 367 hours of safety training. That's the end of that report.
It's apparently time well spent because wasn't it reported out that through that whole big mess, we didn't have one injury? Pretty commendable.
Yeah, thank you for noticing it.
Yeah, that's huge. Kudos.
Big deal for us, so.
Okay, I don't think we need anything on that. Let's move along.
Regular business item number 5, Coaches Corner, Tuolumne Utilities District Reserves Policy.
Please pass it around. Okay, this month's theme for the Coaches Corner is reserves and our reserves policy. And I think it's timely. And I'm somewhat inadequate to be giving this, but I got a heck of an assistant coach over here that you've heard from earlier that can fill in the blanks where I leave off. So Tuolumne Utilities District Reserve Policy, Strengthening Financial Stability and Resilience. The Tuolumne Utilities District Reserve Policy adopted by the board in June of 2020 provides a disciplined work framework to ensure the district maintains sufficient financial resources to meet its operational, capital, debt service, and emergency obligations. This policy is a key element of the district's long-term financial strategy and supports reliable service delivery while minimizing financial volatility for ratepayers. The primary purpose of the rate reserves policy is to ensure funding is always available to support ongoing operations, planned capital investment, and unforeseen events. By aligning reserve levels with the district's capital improvement program, long-range financial planning, and strategic goals, the policy helps avoid sudden rate impacts caused by cash flow disruptions, regulatory changes, or emergency conditions. Did I just read that again? Adequate reserves are also enhance the district's creditworthiness, promote strong bond ratings, and preserve financial flexibility, allowing the district to respond effectively to economic uncertainty, drought, heavy rainfall, infrastructure failures, and unfunded mandates. Policy authorizes the board of directors to establish reserves funds and minimum balances the district's best interest. Reserve levels are reviewed annually as part of the budget process, ensuring transparency, accountability, and alignment with changing financial and operational risks. All reserve funds are segregated within the district's accounting system and managed in accordance with GASB standards, providing clear tracking and reporting to the board and ratepayers. The policy establishes reserve funds for both water and wastewater services, each with a defined purpose and target level. First is the operating fund reserve. Provides working capital for daily operations. It protects against cash flow disruptions from events such as drought, litigation, or unexpected cost increases. The target range for this is 90 to 270 days of annual operation and maintenance expenses. The excess balances are transferred to capital reserves at fiscal year end. Next, we have the contingency/emergency fund reserve. This protects the districts against unanticipated emergencies or catastrophic failures requiring immediate response. This target level is 2% of the annual O&M. Next, we have the Capital Improvement Projects Fund Reserve. This supports timely repair and replacement of infrastructure and stabilizes the long-range capital improvement program. The target reflects board-adopted revenue-funded capital projects for the upcoming fiscal year. And finally, in water, the PG Water Storage, Hydropower, and Conveyance System Acquisition Fund Reserve, intended to incrementally build capacity for potential system acquisition and/or self-insurance to address catastrophic asset failures impacting essential operations. This policy also recognizes restricted funds governed by external, legal, regulatory, or contractual requirements, including facility, capital, capacity fees, future water resource fees, and debt service reserve funds, which may only be used for their designated purposes. Capital reserve levels, these reserve levels as of fiscal year 25 are summarized by the fund in the following tables and charts. So for water and operating, you can see at the far left, we're at 30% of our goal. So our goal is 4.1, we're sitting at 1.5 or 30%. Same with contingency. We're sitting at 30% funded with a goal of 327,000. We have 121,000 in. Identical for capital. We have a goal of 5.9. We're sitting at 2.1, 37%. Our PG&E goal, we're sitting at 100%. We had a goal of 1 million. We have a 1 million in there. And then the unrestricted is sitting at 555,000, and the restricted is sitting at 295,000. Sewer, we have a goal, again, the 270 days of O&M, we're at 100%. 5.6 is the goal, sitting at 5.6. Contingency, a goal of 150,000, met 150,000. Upcoming capital budget, well, far in excess, right? We have a goal of 1.5, we're sitting at 7.4, so 494% greater than the goal. And then unrestricted, we're at 2.2. Restricted, about $0.8 million $8 million, or 100%. And that's it. So I think it was important to go through reserves policy with you. I know Carolyn can answer all of your questions. I won't answer any of them. But I will say that, you know, we didn't have a policy a number of years ago. We developed a policy, and it's a very useful, obviously very useful tool. It isn't as of until late that we're actually put some money in reserves on the water fund because we're so far behind in debt from past year's experiences. It may be a time, today's not the day, but there may be a time that you want to get together with Carolyn and us to talk about modifying the reserve policy and the balances and the methodology behind them. That's all I have. Go ahead.
Well, I'd like to add a little something to that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
In years past, well, first of all, this is like night and day. This is commendable. I mean, I think we're doing way better than in the past. But in the past, we used to have the due to, due from method of financing. And it was because water was broke, and for some reason sewer was able to keep their head above water. So water was constantly borrowing from sewer, and what a mess that was. So this is really good now. And I really got to take my hat off to staff getting us back onto a legitimate bookkeeping method. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't have anything to say to that, other than, you know, much of this has to do with the past, and much of it has to do with rate increases as well. So, you know, if things are continuing to operate at a deficit and rates don't start to reflect being able to cover those costs and put a little bit extra away, then this isn't possible. So just, you know, that's a board decision that really influenced this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that, and also a real attempt at trying to fund as many projects as possible with grant funding. That's been a huge help at extending the monies of the ratepayers.
100% grants have helped out tremendously.
Well, thank you, Dawn. Guess that's it. Yeah, you got a question?
Mike.
Yeah, thanks for providing this. This is something that, as board members, it's something that we very much need to keep our eye on. It's not discussed a lot, but it's a huge factor, as I see, as being a good steward and management of our district. A couple things. How much heartburn should we have or feel for the water reserve levels that have not? I mean, we made tremendous strides, from tremendous progress, but looking, forward to the next umpteen years, how much heartburn should we have that we're not funded as well with the water reserve as we are with the sewer reserves?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I could give you a super definitive answer other than, I mean, this is a very unclear, we're really not too bad.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
So one of the things to mention with reserves
Uh-huh.
is what these are is essentially taking what we own
Right.
less what we owe and what's left over. Many, many districts on a book level, when they take what they own less what they owe, is negative because of unfunded liabilities, because of those large unfunded liability amounts. So when you think about it, yes, we still have a large unfunded liability amount, but really what we own, meaning our cash, what's owed to us, all those various things are larger than our unfunded liability. So the fact that our reserves aren't negative, which many districts are in that position, is actually a really positive thing. So in that sense, for me, there's not tons of heartburn because we are making strides
Right.
in water and it's not negative, if that answers your question.
And then kind of a corollary to that, we did a 5-year projection. We covered this earlier. Do we have a projection for reserves for the next 5 years?
Well, those projections could influence reserves.
Right.
So basically, when you have a deficit, that could influence your reserve levels.
Right.
So we didn't go into this in a lot of detail, but in sewer in particular,
Mhm.
even though there are deficits projected, we're pretty comfortable on the reserve side where we could kind of probably use some of that reserve to lessen the impact that it might have, like on rates, for example.
Right.
So because we have quite a bit in CIP, we really could use some of that to start paying for those CIP costs. And it would be a pattern that I would try to project out for you. Because you don't want to do it fully, because otherwise in year 6, you still have to do a rate increase because your reserves are on what you're funding CIP for, or what you were funding CIP with, and you would need that much more in that beyond the 5 years, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So you almost kind of want to like smooth it. But I don't know if that addresses your original question, but
Helps.
so those deficits do affect it.
Uh-huh.
But in some instances, like sewer, I think it could really absorb it to a certain extent.
Great.
That helps answer the question.
Thank you. Great job. And I have the sense that we're in good hands and the district is in great hands with your expertise. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything further from the board? If not, I'll open up to the public. Anything on this? Nope. Okay, then we will close it out and move right along here. Holly.
Okay, staff reports.
I'll be quick. It was a blur. But I know that on the 17th, I met with Director Ringen for a few hours, going over district business and actually taking a sight see of a few items. And then on 3/19, just a few days ago, the Sierra Task Force experience down at Chicken Rancheria, which I had to depart early, but it looked like a great event. End of report.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
I do have a report. Good morning, everyone. We had a couple of outreach opportunities throughout the community last week that I wanted to report on. The first one, and Eric Johnson would probably normally mention this, but we worked with a group that puts together an event called Engineers in the Classroom. And they go to elementary schools and they're trying to promote STEM types of jobs. And so we had some of our engineering staff at Curtis Creek Elementary School and Gold Rush Elementary School. And they did fun water pressure, experiments with the kids on various levels. And so we put that out on our Facebook page as well if you want to check out more about it. But it was a really fun event and the kids just had a blast and again, wrote the engineers nice little thank you cards and everything. So they got really excited about it. And then the second thing that we participated in was the Dream It, Be It event at Somerville High School. That was last Wednesday or the Wednesday before, and that's put on by the Twain Hart Seroptimus group. And they put on this event for freshmen and sophomores at Somerville, and they do it every 2 years. So they had about 140 students, female students. And so that they just brought in local career mentors to talk about their careers, what it takes to do their job, what qualifications you need, what skill sets you need, what challenges there are, and what educational requirements there are. And so 2 of our staff members participated in that, Michelle Perkins, our wastewater superintendent, and Danica Bland, our safety compliance coordinator. And so they got to talk to girls at Somerville High that about doing jobs that maybe aren't typical for a female to do. But so there was a lot of interest there, and I think really opened up these girls' eyes to what types of jobs that are out there. So they did have a lot of different careers there, so they really enjoyed being there. So we appreciate the Seroptimus group including us on that invite. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is just a reminder that tomorrow is our reclamation luncheon. It is in this room and it starts at 11:30. We'll serve lunch. It'll be about an hour. There should be between about 25 and 30 people here, and we're looking forward to it. So, and I believe all of you RSVP'd yes, so we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Okay, bring it to the board. Who would like to start? Okay, you're on.
I only have one thing to report. I went to the T-Stand meeting on the 18th.
Nothing to report.
Went to 2 fire resilience meetings this month. First one by League of Women Voters early in the month, on several other groups, a lot of the same groups on the 19th at the Fire Resilience Conference.
Director Jacobs. Microphone.
Attended the MCWRA Sierra Nevada regional meeting that was held Thursday, the 19th at Chicken Ranch with Director Perkins and Director Ringen. Don't believe any of the other staff or directors were there, but it was quite educational and informative, and I think very worthwhile. Had a discussion with a few of the folks from, one of the presenters was from the PG&E, talking about risk management and that kind of thing, and another with the regional, can't remember the exact title, but the forestry department from the Western region. And there were, the discussion of the flume issues were front and center, and just wanted to, again, commend the staff for everything that was done. I think one of the things that came to mind was, and not to in any way diminish the Herculean effort that TUD put forth, but I was very impressed with the way that PG&E stepped up and intervened. There was a group, a joint press release from our staff and from, looks like it was Dave Gabbard, Vice President of Power Generation. Do we have any contact or do we have any relations with him or know much about him?
That name doesn't ring a bell. They have a lot of
They have a lot of
different
people.
departments.
Anyway, he, on the letter, on the joint press release, Dave Gabbard, who, let's see, is the Vice President of Power Generation. He just said that Tuolumne Utility District is a customer too, and getting the canal repaired and back in operation was the top priority for my team. So that was, I don't know what, if anything, we've done, but I think in addition to commending the work that we did, our staff did, PG&E probably invested a lot of bucks, several million probably to make it happen. And whatever we can do to just let them know how much we appreciate it, and that might further our developing a good relationship with them. I know we have a good relationship already, but just a formal thing might be something to consider. President Reagan, just a thought.
We've already been there. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Let's see. Also on the 12th, March 12th, I attended a Zoom meeting for the Ennis National Special Districts Association. They had a Federal Advocacy 101 Zoom meeting, which I attended. And then along those lines, there are a couple other things that we might, which I want to attend, maybe some staff might want to consider. On April 16th, there's a federal grants webinar with NSDA with a group called the Ferguson Group. Are we familiar with them? Had any experience with them? They're basically a lobby organization with the National Special District Association that focuses on federal grants. So it's something that we might get plugged into. It might be helpful. I was poking around. There's a wealth of information, and there's way more than could possibly absorb. But one thing that caught my attention was there's about $24 million in federal grants that they are basically soliciting proposals for people that want to take advantage of them. So something we might want to look into. And then in closing, I discovered that one of our state senators, or not state senators, but federal U.S. senators from state of California, is a degreed mechanical engineer who graduated from MIT, and he is on the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, in particular the Water and Power Subcommittee. So he has a bill that he's pushing to establish a water conveyance improvement program. So those are things that we may have some interest in. That's it.
Okay. On 310, and participated in the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association Legislative Committee meeting, and I don't have a lot that I'm going to bring back on that, but because right now they're just going through all of the various assembly bills, getting things lined out to go before the Board of Mountain Counties. On 313, as GM Perkins already said, met with him, TUD business issues. 314 attended the annual TUCARE promotion, I'll call it a promotion meeting. And their guest speaker was our legislator, Tangapa. That was pretty interesting. 317 met with, again, with GM Perkins on our board agenda and TUD business. 318 attended and participated in the T. Stan Irwin joint WAC and JPA meeting. We're interviewed the consultant firm that we hired, which is going to move us towards our new group plan, if you want to call it that. We still don't know what DWR wants from us as a IRWM, but we're moving forward anyways to be ahead of the process, and we're making good progress. I think I don't know, Holly was there, she was taking notes. I think that the consultant group might have thought that they might have bit off a little bit more than they could chew by some of the questions and comments and things like that that came from the group. That's a powerful group, that IRWIMP group. 318 met with the Mountain County's director and staff on the pre-Jamestown program, which was for the program that brought up, SNC and Mountain County's Jamestown program, which occurred the very next day. And that was very, very interesting. It just goes to show how powerful the collaboration of all the groups here in Tuolumne County is. We are, Tuolumne County's leading the charge as far as forest, working on forest health, watershed health, and fire hardening the community. So it was really good to see everybody get together, and it was put on by or emceed by Profoot. I can't think of it's a natural resource. Yeah, and I think he went away with a new appreciation for what's going on up here. So that's it for me. So with that, we'll bring it back to Haley for where we go from here.
All right, we're moving into closed session.
Okay, before we go into closed session, I'll open it up to the public if they have anything they want to say about what's on the agenda for the closed session. And seeing none, bring it back and probably.
Do we need to announce the two closed session items?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that probably would be a good idea.
Closed session item A, conference with real property negotiators. I need to read the whole thing. Okay. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, property APN number 085-050-001. Agency negotiators Don Perkins, Jesse Barton, and Tom Johnson. Other parties to negotiations, Mike Schoenher and Seth Perez, Pacific Gas and Electric Company. Under negotiation, price and terms of payment. And item number B, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Sections 54957.6. Agency representatives Don Perkins and Abby Parkhan. Employee organization, Northern California District Council of Labor's Construction, Production and Maintenance Labor's Local Union number 1130.
Okay, thank you, Haley. And now that we know what we're going to be doing in closed session, I'll open it back up to the public. And I don't see anybody, so we'll close it. Then we'll probably go in. Yeah. I guess in order to save anybody from coming back, we will not have any reportable action coming out of closed session. So with that, we will have a recess of about 10 minutes or so. Will that work for everybody? Okay, so we'll adjourn to closed session.